Good afternoon, this is RFC Maki playing War Thunder on the Xbox One. For this Christmas, I received a flight stick, the HOTAS flight stick for Xbox, and I have really been enjoying flying with it. This is a quick view of my setup. I have managed to use both the flight stick, the throttle, and the regular keypad-based controller to control the planes. This week, or this particular mission, is a bit of a custom battle I've played on the Berlin map. For whatever reason, when I set it up, I wound up actually putting the Allies in the middle of Berlin and the Axis on the outside of Berlin. I have since fixed that. But in this battle, I am flying a Hurricane Mark I. I'm still getting used to the flight stick and still tweaking a lot of settings, and I find the Hurricane to be a very stable plane and a very easy one to learn on. So here we are, gradually lifting off, and I have found, compared to my earlier settings, that the throttle on this flight stick has been fantastic. I am actually nailing landings. I hardly crash anymore, like I used to crash a lot easier. And I think part of it was because it's a lot easier to make very sudden and very precise adjustments of the throttle. Here we have lifted off, and I have been able to drop my flaps and fly over the edge of Berlin. Now, the airfield that you're flying out of here is actually a historical airfield. This is one that was built just before World War II, and it was a very famous airfield, as a public airfield that was taken over by the military. So I've actually just left that. Unfortunately, when I flew this originally, I didn't do a glancing over my back shoulder to take a look at the airfield. One of the things I really enjoy about the Xbox version of this game is that when you fly over a city, there are tons of buildings, and you really do get the sensation that you're flying over a city. The water effects in this game are also quite good. This game is an exciting one. This version of the custom map is an exciting one because you have a number of bases that you have to defend, and the bases are surprisingly close to the city. But the ultimate goal of the game is for the Germans to go ahead and defend several airfields that are located, airfields or bases, I think, that are located farther in the middle of the field. The Axis army, or the Allied army, the other side of the army in this case, is actually going to be attacking those airfields with ground forces. So there are a number of ground forces and tanks and things that you can attack. So here I am trying to fly out. The bases are listed A, B, and C, or the ones you have to defend are listed A, B, and C. So I'm actually doing a fly out to go and get them. I've shortened the fly out a little bit here, sort of gotten rid of some of the boring initial climbing for the game. And I'm going to get closer to where the bandits are. Now, I will say that the adjustment to the flight stick and the throttle has not been perfect. I am struggling. You can see there I'm still able to zoom. I've got my look around on the hat stick, and of all the things that are going on, the hat stick is probably the least comfortable thing that I've got going on. I'm still trying to find a way to be able to use the hat stick to look around. I'm getting more comfortable with it, but it's not the smooth and easy manipulation that it was using the right stick for me on my controller. There is one of the airfields that's out there, and actually one of the great things about this airfield, and you'll see in a little bit, is when you get damaged, you can actually fly to that airfield and land and repair on that airfield as long as it still belongs to you, in a way that you couldn't. Ordinarily, you'd have to fly all the way back to your initial airbase. So I'm flying out and trying to take a look for enemy planes and or bombers. In this game, there are a number of Soviet bombers that are out there, and they are actually on the Allied side in this case, and so I'm going to have to be going after some of those Soviet bombers. There's also a number of I'm playing tiers 1 and 2 mostly, so I'm looking for either those, or I'm looking for some American bombers. I don't see a whole lot of in this game are the high altitude bombers, and so most of my activity then is to be flying low and flying after these guys. I actually have the flight stick set fairly smoothly. You can see that I've got decent control over the way the plane is working, but I've also noticed something different about when I fly here, and I've noticed this a lot when I've been online, particularly, but when I'm playing the online air realistic battles. But when I'm playing this battle, I notice it too, and you'll see it as well. There's some of the bombs dropped by some of these Soviet bombers, and you can see a couple of them up ahead of me. So my goal here was to try to slip in behind them. There's a line of 3 of them, and so I'm going to sort of try to take after, or sort of slip in the last of them there, and see if I can't bring somebody down. I was nervous there about those shots coming behind me, but I'm pretty sure that those shots coming behind me were from ground forces. So I'm trying to turn. I think at this point I had switched my pitch controls from being entirely linear to about, based on some advice I'd seen online, about to a non-linear setting, so setting somewhere around 2. What this does is that actually allows subtle movements to make, or small movements to make very subtle adjustments in your pitch, and heavier movements to make much more solid adjustments. So there I am, unfortunately dropping my nose to follow the plane, and the whole time firing under that bomber. It climbs up again, and the AI are kind of predictable at this point. They'll drop down and then climb back up a little bit. But there you can see I'm going to try to lead it a little bit, but trying to make subtle adjustments that I can hit them with is difficult. You can see a little bit of black smoke there, which tells me I've hit a little bit. I'm flying a Hurricane Mark 1, and the Hurricane Mark 1s only have machine guns, no cannons, which means that it's going to take an awful lot of machine guns to bring this thing down, or have to hit them from a better angle. I find when you're behind them, it's very difficult to do good damage to these planes. You can do damage, but it just never seems to be enough to bring them down. There you see a couple extra hits on the side, deflection shot, and there you see I did enough to actually damage the tail control of this plane. So I was thinking, great, it's going to go down. I dropped my throttle to lodge in behind it. It's firing like crazy. And here you're noticing I'm having a hard time making subtle adjustments. I've actually since moved the linearity up to about 4, up more hits, and it's still not going down. There a plane passes under me. More hits and it's still not going down. I've actually since then I've adjusted my linearity even more, because one of the things I'm discovering is when I get up close, my heart starts to race, I begin to panic, and I make lots of really bad non-subtle adjustments. There you can see I've been hit, yellow damage on my body and my engine. I've got my throttle down, and unfortunately I lost control of the plane there and went down, and that Soviet bomber was given credit for the kill. You can see he's damaged, but not enough. Now, much later in the game, I came back out. I was shooting planes. I wanted to put this in because I wanted to show you that I am able to bring up 2 planes down. So there's a kill there, but my engine is damaged at this point. And I'm thinking I can go after a couple more planes, maybe pop a little more damage out there. But as I'm keeping an eye on that, you'll notice that the longer you fly, the more damage you do to your engine. And so the sort of trade-off here is, do I go after this plane and try to bring it down, or do I decide to go ahead and head to the airfield? A little bit greedy there. Take another hit. The plane is just not doing very well. Now, I call this mission, or this adventure, Just Breathe, because I've been noticing that when I get close to a plane, I tend to panic and make very large movements. I really have to keep myself mentally controlled, like I am when I'm not in combat. You saw the smoothness of the plane before. I've really got to take mental control of myself, steady my heartbeat, try to stay calm, and have much better control of the plane, even when I'm located up close next to the enemy planes, next to the bandits. I do find that I panic. The movements that I make are fairly large and complex, and I wind up messing up. Now, the plane pulls out from there. I go ahead and get another hit on a plane because the first one pulled away. Another was going to fly in front of me, but again, I'm watching my damage, and I see that my damage is really, really bad. So I'm going to follow this guy down, lose him visually against the ground, which happens quite a lot. And I thought he was going to go down, so there I just decided, you know what, maybe I better head over to the base, see where that other base is. I don't know if it's entirely true to the standard sim settings, but I do leave the ability to find my location mapped on the map when I have it on there. I just don't have mapped the enemy planes. I have enemy tanks and things, but I don't have the enemy planes mapped on there. I actually try to work so I can find them. So you can see it's just me on that map and nobody else. And I see that there's an airfield nearby. So one of the things I've been feeling really good about is using that throttle to get good landings. Oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, I wanted to give an awesome shout out to Roguestar1. I've played with him once or twice on here, and we chat on the Xbox pages, but Roguestar1 seems to be awesome. And he's created a tutorial for how to set up your HOTAS flight stick, and I used that setting to get me going. Now, there's a couple things that he and I differ on. I put a few settings of my own, and I've actually adjusted a couple settings a little bit less sensitive than he has, but his settings were invaluable in getting my HOTAS flight stick set up the way I want to. He also, as much as possible, tends to fly cockpit views, and so he and I have a very similar philosophy on how to play the game. I did manage to play with him recently, but we never found each other in the game. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that as I get closer over here, I'm actually able to find the airfield, and I'm going to try to zoom in and see if I can't get a nice view of the airfield. This airfield, I think, is labeled B or C, and so this is typically the last one that the AI go after, so it's not a bad place to go to touch down. I really do enjoy, by the way, the bullet holes throughout my cockpit. I do enjoy that when you're really damaged, you'll notice that your even some of your controls are smashed. You can't tell your altitude, you can't tell your speed. You really have to go by the feel of the plane. So here, making sure nobody's on my tail, making sure that I'm somewhere close to the airfield, and flying at full throttle. Now, I've had great success lately with this flight stick in doing landings, and part of that's because one of the features of the HOTAS flight stick is the halfway point on the throttle, the 50% throttle area, actually has kind of a little notch, so it's very easy, without even looking, to slide that throttle down to 50%, which is perfect because adjusting your throttle to 50% like I've done here allows the plane to stay in the air a bit, but still allows you to bleed off some of your speed. So here I am coming in, and as I get closer, I'll drop the throttle a little bit more. You can hear the sound of the engine dropping, and I'm going to lower my wheels. And so I've got a pretty good approach. Things are going great until I noticed that somebody decided to put a couple, I'll raise the throttle a little bit just to make sure I stay off the ground. Somebody decided to go ahead and put a set of sandbags there at the end of the run field, which I clipped with my wheel. I didn't break off my wheel, but it did cause my left wing to slam into the ground. When my left wing slams into the ground, you can't see it here yet, but when I look over, you'll notice I snapped that little bugger off. Still, I managed to keep control of the plane. Still managed to keep control. There we go. You can see the wing is snapped off. Still managed to keep control of the plane and still managed to bring it into a landing. Now, one of the great things about this is it only takes about 30 seconds for my ground crew to reload my plane, refuel my plane, and to build me a brand new set of wings and install new glass in the cockpit. So that was pretty good. So I did manage to save the plane this time, make a safe landing, and then fly back out again. As I get better, I'll clue you guys in. But for now, cheers, and I'll see you guys next time.